Alrighty, by now you should have downloaded from Schoology our different templates and our different images. We also have the mockup that you should have downloaded, but that's going to come a little bit later, and I didn't want to have too many open up here. The first thing that we need to do is on our templates is we have to lock the guides. These guides right here, yours might be a different color, are to help us stay inside our kind of like our bleed edge. Because when it comes to printing, the stuff that's along the edges, if it's like a mass printing, might get cut off a little bit. So we need to stay inside that with anything that's super important, like words. So we are going to go up to our view button, and then we're going to click on guides, and then we are going to lock guides. So that's going to stop us from moving them anywhere. We can always unlock them later or add more guides if we need to, but we just need to do that to make sure that we stay inside our little safety space there. So once you have it on one, you're going to want to go to the other, and it's the exact same thing. You go up to view, you click guides, and then you go to lock guides. You can do the keyboard shortcut too. I know we're still learning our keyboard shortcuts, so I'm not going to throw too many at you. But once you have that, we're going to focus on our front cover first. Our front cover is going to be primarily a big picture in the background. So I will need to put that in first. But remember, we want to do all this with a bunch of different layers so that we don't mess up one thing while trying to fix another. So we're going to pop over here and we're going to click the new layer button. If you would like to call this like graves or background picture, that is up to you. I know that some of you guys are super good at renaming things, and some of you guys are like, Psh, I don't need to rename it, Miss Covart, and that is just fine. So I'm going to pop over here now to my graves picture, and I'm going to select all. So for me on my keyboard, that is Command A. Those of you who are using the Windows keyboards that are connected to our Macs, you're going to want to click Windows A, and then we're going to copy. So that is Command C for me, or Windows C. Or if you would like, you can always pop up here to edit copy. And then we're going to pop on back over here, and we are going to paste. So for me, that's Command V or Windows V. And you'll notice it's way too big. That is just fine, because now we are going to adjust its size. So I like to do that by grabbing my corner, and I hold Shift so that I can keep my proportions, because if I don't, it goes like this. I can also type it up here, but I like to just pull the corners myself. And we do not want this giant gravestone in here because it's a little bit too big. Now, if we were doing a full cover like one of my other video shows, I could do it kind of halvesies, but I kind of like seeing like these distance ones. That way when we put our other stuff in, it's not going to be, massive gravestone and then things trying all lay over and lapping on each other. And you can decide if you want like more tree or if you want more gravestone. I think I'm going to kind of go like this, and then I'm done. So I can either click done, or I can click the check mark, or you can just hit enter and it does it as well. So this black and white picture is pretty cool, but I want to add kind of a scary, spooky vibe to it. So I am going to kind of push it towards like that ghostly green that you sometimes see. And so for that, we need to come on over here to adjustments, and then we are going to find the one that says gradient map. There it is. And yours might be a black to white gradient map originally. It's all depends on like whatever you used it for last, or whatever this is over here is set. But we don't want these colors. We don't want blue. We want scary, spooky green. So we're going to double click on that. And then we are going to go over to here, and we are going to change this one because it's our lightest one. We're going to change that one to like a nice light green. Oh, I'm still in my reds, so I'm going to just kind of set light. And then I'm going to go until I find kind of a greenish color that I like. I'm going to go right about there. And we don't want to go up here to this because this is very saturated. We want a very desaturated, very light green. Because if you'll notice, like there's a difference between this green and this green in our colors. And I would like to go with more of like a light green like that. Then I'm going to click OK. And down here, you're going to want this one to remain black if yours is black. And we're going to click OK. But you'll notice if I move this off to the side, it doesn't quite look green in a lot of places. And that's because it's going from a light to a black without any like greens in the middle. So we need to add a couple extra squares in here. So we do that by just kind of clicking, and I'm going to click on that. And I need to make sure that I'm working in the same hex code. So I'm going to pop on over here. I'm going to copy that one's hex code. I'm going to pop back here. Ooh, double click. And so that gives me that same color. And then I can just like slowly work my way down with each square. And you can move these around as you want. And remember, your hex code doesn't have to perfectly match mine. If yours is a slightly yellower green or a slightly bluer green, that is just fine. And then you're just going to click OK. And then you're going to add another one. And because this was the last one that we picked, it's going to go with that. And I'm just going to slowly work my way down. And I would say try to get at least 4 or 5 in here. Don't go with like 20. That's just way too much. Okay? And you'll notice I'm kind of starting to get closer to my more saturated ones, which I do not want. So I've got to make sure that I'm kind of sticking over here in this grayish green area. And I can always go back in and mess with these later if I want to. So I'm going to go with right here now. And I'm going to go down here with my much more darker greens and click OK. And then you know what? I think I'm going to go back up to this green. I'm going to move it a little bit more towards my desaturated green side. Okay, and you can move them around. So like, see if I move this one way up there, it makes things darker. And I think I'm going to be happy with that. So then I just click OK. And I have my lovely kind of greenish gradient map going on here. Now we can keep it like this, or we can go over here and we can mess with the how it interacts with the layers below it. And there's a lot of different options here. So some of them are very odd and change it drastically. And while that's cool, that is not what we're going for. And then some of them really barely do anything at all. But I kind of like how this one, it's still like greenish, creepy-ish color. Overlay also works too. But what it does is it kind of blends it a little bit better with the layer below it. And so I'm going to go with this soft light one because it kind of makes it look a little bit more old school, if you will. Overlay, like I said, works too. Hard light might be more what your style. Vivid light, no. Multiply is a common one that people will use, but we're going to go with some soft light here. And then that way, it looks a little bit more like natural in terms of how it meshes with the one below it. You don't have to do that. If you like the way that your greens look, that is just fine. But I'm just going to do that with mine. To make this even spookier, we are going to try to get rid of some of this white up here. Now you could try to do that with messing with your brightness and contrast, but there's an awful lot up there. So what we are going to do is we are going to actually go in with our paintbrush tool and we're going to kind of give it like a vignette kind of a thing. And we need to make sure that we do this on its own separate layer. Don't do it on any of these layers because we want to be able to go in and fix this once again if we want to. So I'm going to just say this is our black layer. And so I'm going to pop on over to my paintbrush tool. And I need to make sure that this is black. Now I could just go in and click boop, that right there, and that pops me into black. Or if I wanted to, I could go in and manually do it. But then I need to go up and mess with my brush. And so right now my brush is teeny, teeny, tiny. So I need to go quite a bit bigger. But I also want to mess with the hardness because if I do it like this, I get a perfect little circle, which is not what I want. So I'm going to undo that. And I am going to mess with my hardness. I'm going to bring it down. I want it really like nice and soft. So that looks like that now, but it still gets really dark really fast. So I also need to mess with my opacity and my flow. And this is something that you can play around with till you find one that you like. So I'm kind of just going to go in here and you want to hold it while you're doing it. You don't want to just go like constantly clicking because if I go back to my history and look and I'm trying to undo all that, I've got all these brush tools that I have to undo. All right. I don't want that because if I do this, that's a nice quick transition there. All right. So for these first ones, we kind of just want to hold it as we go and we want it to be a nice smooth transition to slightly darker because what that's going to do is that's going to really help out with where we put our text and whatnot. It also gives it kind of like a spookier vibe. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit down here, but not a lot. I'm not trying to get rid of all of the light in here. I just want it to be a wee bit darker so that it looks a little bit more like a spooky, scary kind of a thing. Okay, And I think I'm going to go quite a bit darker towards the top, so I'm just going to keep going up here a little bit. But I don't want it to be like perfectly dark. This little spot right here is bugging me, so I'm just going to kind of do a little bit right in there. And then you can always go in and you can erase back into it as well. But that kind of gives it a spookier vibe, and if I don't like it, I can always get rid of it. All right? That's one of the nice things about it, and I can go in and I can do stuff like this and be like, no, I don't like it, without actually messing with the stuff that I did before. So you've always got to remember that you put it on its own layer. Once you have the black to where you would like it, you need to start adding in the other things, the other pictures and the text and whatnot. So we're going to start by dropping in the picture of the girl. So I'm going to push the little plus sign right here. That way I have a new layer, and I'm going to change my name so that I know that this is my girl layer. And then I'm going to go find my picture with the girl, and we need to select her. We don't need the background. So I'm going to do my object selection tool. And remember, if it's just pink like this, it's not actually selected. Okay? We need to actually click on it so that we get the little dancing line of ants there, the marquee, if you will. And then you click select and mask. And so that's going to give us this. And if yours isn't getting a lot of this, we can go in and refine. So like you would click the refine, maybe a refine hair tool. And Photoshop has just been getting better and better about this when it comes to their object selection. But if you have a picture that's like this, and let's say it's like a cat or something and it's got whiskers and it's not catching all the whiskers, like the whiskers tend to stop like right at the edge of the face, you are definitely going to want to go in and refine that edge. But I don't really need to with this one. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to pop on over here, and I am going to get about 5. I seem to have landed right on 5, so go me. And then over here, we're going to shift our edge a bit. We don't want to do it too much because you'll see like we lose a lot of her. I am just going to shift it. I'm going to go about 25. 24 apparently. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can always type it in if you need to. And then because we are taking her from this picture and moving her to another, we want to make a selection, not a layer mask like we've done in the past. So we're going to click OK. And it's going to look like we lost a lot of her, but we're going to see how that goes. So we're going to copy, and then we're going to pop on over here, and we're going to paste. And she's got her own layer, and we need to adjust her because this is way too big. She's like a massive person in this picture. So once again, we need to adjust our size. So you can grab your corner, you can click the little button down here. You can also do edit, and then you can do adjustments and those kind of things. But we're just going to grab our corner. And remember, we don't want to mess with her proportions. So we're going to hold shift, and we are going to make her quite a bit smaller. Okay. Now remember, this is a book cover, so we need to have space for like the text. We need to have space for the other parts. I'm going to put her so that she's kind of down here, because if we do this, remember, the bleed edge is where things might get cut off. So we don't put important things there, but you know what? Her shoulder isn't terribly important. We're just going to kind of go like this, and we're going to put her right there like that, and click done. So it's going to save it like that. And now we've got her on there, and we're still getting some of those stray wispies, which is nice. So we didn't lose those. We probably didn't get as much as we could have, but because this is just practice for us, we're not going to go in and mess with it too much. We don't want to spend too much time on that. So looking at this, you know what, I think instead of having her over here, I think I'm actually going to have her over here, because I've got a lot of kind of like more like she's looking into it if she's over there. So I need to flip her. So I'm just going to go with, I'm going to transform, and I am just going to, I could rotate, but I think I'm just going to flip horizontally like this. Rotate would be like she'd be standing on her head then. And then we're just going to put her in. And once again, I'm just going to drop it. So like we're losing part of her shoulder. But I think that works a little bit better because she's like looking more into the space. If yours for your cover is on the other side, that is up to you. And then I'm just going to hit enter again. Oh, I wasn't transforming it, so I didn't need to hit enter. But now she's in there, and we are good to move on to adjusting her colors so that she better matches this picture. Because right now she is kind of that lighter hue, those like lighter, more pastel-y colors, but she's far too happy looking for our spooky, scary book here. So to get her to better match the pictures, what we're going to do first is we're going to move her below our gradient map. And depending on how much you did in your black layer, like you can see a little bit is in there, you might want to go back and erase. So you can just go in with your eraser tool. And this is why we do it on its own layer. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, mess with my hardness. This is way, that might not be way too big. I didn't do a lot down in my corners there. You might have done more, but you would just go back in and you would just kind of erase back into her. And you want to make sure that you kind of still have that nice soft edge because you don't want it to be all of a sudden like a harsh cut edge. But she is still she's still a little bit too bright, but I didn't want it painted with blackness. I want to just kind of mess with her color specifically. So I'm going to click back on her layer. I'm just going to switch back to this tool just because I don't want to accidentally erase anything on her. And I'm going to click on adjustments. And yes, thank you so much for telling me that. We want to mess with just her specifically. We want to mess with her hue and saturation. But since we only want it to go to her, we are going to make sure that we make that into a clipping mask so that it applies to the layer right below, which would be the girl. So I want to bring down her saturation a bit. She's a little green. And then I'm going to bring down her lightness just to kind of darken her up a bit. And that's going to mess with the whole thing. So like if I wanted to really make her kind of creepy, I'd go like that. But she's not supposed to be the creepy part. It's supposed to be the ghost. So we're just going to kind of mess. And if you want to mess with these a little bit, it'll do a little bit. But because she's below that gradient map that we had before, it's not going to do. You can make her super saturated, but we don't want that either. We just kind of want to push her down a little bit. If you go too dark, you might lose her eyes, and then she becomes kind of, once again, that super creepy. But I am happy with that. So I would say that she is good to go, and then we can start adding our other things now. The next thing to add would be our ghost, and so we are going to add a new layer because we do not want our ghost to be part of our girl layer. So we're just going to add that layer, and I'm going to type in ghost again. All right, and I have to go find my picture with my ghost. And we want just the ghost, this super spooky, scary bedsheet ghost. And we are going to object select him again. Going to go up to select and mask because we want a selection. We're going to do a little bit of feathering here. Do a tiny bit of shift edge again. And we want selection, so we're going to click OK. And then we are going to copy, pop back over here, and we're going to paste. He is too big, so we need to change his size. Okay, and he is going to pop up over to here. Okay, now you could have him kind of go behind her, but then it would have to go behind her in terms of the layers. And we might do that later, but first we are just going to kind of put him in here. And what we need to do is we need to make him look more ghostly. So we're going to click done, and we are now going to make a layer mask of him. So we're going to go back in, we're going to select just our dude, we're going to select and mask, and this time, when we do it, we are going to make it just, we're going to do a layer mask, okay? And we're going to click OK. So he is up here, and we need to either add or subtract from that layer. So remember, white means that you're adding to the mask, and black means that you're subtracting. So I need to flip-flop that, and then I need to go in with my paintbrush tool. You can also click down here, all right? And I am subtracting, and I'm going to come up here. And what I want to do is I kind of want to make it a gradual transition up, like he's slowly fading in, all right? And it is up to you how much you want to do for this one. I think I'm going to, I think I might have overdone it a little bit up there, so I can always switch and go back. Bring a little bit of my little ghosty dude back. I want to still be able to see that transparent part, but half the fun of having it be a bedsheet ghost is that you can tell it's a bedsheet ghost. So I'm just going to go a little bit up here, and that is what I'm going to do for him. So I believe that my ghost is set. If you want to move him in terms of layers down below, you can. So maybe I want him part of this, but the problem is if I put him down here, he's going to mess with that. I kind of like him as like the pure white aspect, so I'm gonna his pure colors. If it was a different ghost, I might change that, but I like him where he is. So now we are ready to add our text. So I am going to, at this point, if you want to put all of these in like a group that says like pictures or something, you can. I'm not doing too many layers more than this, so I'm not going to, but you can if you want to. And so we are about to do our text. So we are going to pop on over here to our text tool, and you are going to want to draw it in like that, and it's going to give you a bunch of, remember that filler font, and so we don't want that. And if you like accidentally click off it like this, and oh no, you can't select it all again, remember you can just select all and then delete, and then you can start typing. So this is the Ghosts Graveyard, but this is quite obviously not a font that will work for this. So, and I just realized it's not graveyard, it's just grave. So I'm just going to deselect that. So I am going to select all of this, and I need to adjust this. So we're going to go with a font that kind of better matches, and we are going to go with boop, 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 and you can type this in after I find it for you. We are just going to go with I don't know even how to pronounce that, so we're just going to click on that. But it's a little bit spookier, a little bit scarier, and then we need to go quite a bit bigger. Oop, I think I went too big. Alrighty. I'm still too big, but I'm getting there. And you can also like manually type this in as well. And black is obviously not going to work. Now I don't want to go with pure white with this, because if I do, watch what's going to happen here. It's going to be like really, really bright. I think I'm going to go with that more of that greenish, kind of like a that kind of a thing, and it'll kind of go a little bit better. And so make sure that when you're doing this that you type in, because there's a difference between an uppercase and a lowercase. I know we've been having some struggles with that, but proper capitalization is important with your book covers. So once I have it and I'm good, I'm just going to say, yes, that's good. And I can now move this around. But remember, when you're moving it, you have to click right on it. If I click anywhere else, it's going to collect something else. So remember, those pink lines that are popping up that are like this are to help you figure out where it's going to be. So right here, it'll be centered on the whole thing. And because I have this as center aligned, that means that everything's going to be nice and centered, which is what we want. For your book cover that you might be making for your assignment, you don't have to have it centered. Maybe yours is going to be left or right aligned. That is completely up to you. But for this cover, we want it nice and centered like this. The next thing that we need to add is we are going to add the author's name. So you can put it right underneath on your book cover, or I'm going to put mine down here for right now and see how that goes. We don't want this font though. We are going to go with something a little bit easier to read, but we want something, we're going to go with, oop, I scrolled right past it. We're going to go with something narrow like this, and I'm going to do mine in all capitalized because I think that that'll help it stand out a little bit. You do not have to do it in all caps on your actual book cover, but you do, like again, like once I said before, you have to remember, I didn't select all when I did that. You have to remember that spelling and grammar is still important. So you need to make sure that you have at least the first letter of both their names capitalized, because if you try to do something else, it is not going to work out for you. And I clicked wrong there. So once I've got that in, I can start moving things around to see how I like it. I don't want to go too low, because once again, if it goes below our bleed edge, it might get cut off. But it's a little darker down here. I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to zoom out and see how I think that looks. You know what? I think that this should be a little bit bigger. So I am going to go like this, and I'm going to make that bigger. And I think what that's going to do is it's going to make it 2 lines, but I'm okay with that because I've got plenty of space up there. If I wanted to adjust that space that's between them, like between the 2 lines, I could come over here and I could mess with it. Right now yours is probably set to auto, so I think I'm going to go with the 48 like that, just because it moves them a little bit closer. All right, and then I can kind of move this around. So maybe I want to make it look like the branch is underlining or what have you. But just depends on how big you made everything and where you put everything, what's going to look best for your particular cover. I think I am. Once again, make that a slightly bigger font, like that. And because I went with a bigger font, I'm going to want to go with a bigger size in between. That's probably too big of a jump. There we go. You don't have to be as exact as that is. That is 100% up to you. But now that I've got that in, I've got my title and I've got my author, but I'm not quite done yet. All right, and before I do anything else, I just realized after, getting done telling you guys to check your spelling and grammar, I spelled her last name wrong. So we're just going to go in and we're going to fix that real quick. Okay. Now we have to add our secondary text. And so that secondary text is the stuff that's not as important as this part, but it still kind of adds that extra little, gives you a little something something that tells you what's going on in the book. Now there's probably going to be a whole lot more in the back of the book cover, but you know how people say don't judge a book by its cover? Well, I hate to break it to you, people do judge books by their cover. So we need to make our cover as selling points as possible. That's not the phrase, but you get what I'm saying. So up here, we are going to add our secondary text. And so it's going to be what if, and I want to be in all caps. So I'm going to just straight up turn my caps lock on. What if you could see a ghost that no one else could? Question mark. However, my font that I have is way too big, so I have to go quite a bit smaller so that you can see it all, but it's still typed, so I have to do select all when I do that. All right, and I can already tell I have some spelling errors there, so I'm going to go in and fix those. Okay, what if you could see a ghost that no one else could? Awesome sauce. Now, it's still a little bit too big because I want it to be all on one line. So I'm going to go just a skosh of a bit smaller. Oops, still a little bit too big. There we go. And I want it to be a slightly darker green. So I'm going to pop up here. I guess it's white, which I don't want. I'm going to go here. And I'm going to go with a little bit more of this kind of a green. Let's see how that works out. Because that helps it kind of push it. It's like I said, it's that secondary font. It's not as important, but it's still kind of important. So we want it to show up. And then I am going to just start moving things around to see how it's all going to work out. Oop, and I didn't click right on the thing. Like I have told you guys, you have to click right on the text. These smaller ones are a little bit harder because the text is a little bit skinnier. So we want to make sure that things are all lined up. And if at this point you're like, you know what, I think I need to make my sky just a little bit darker, this is why we have multiple layers. So I'm going to go back here. And this is just where you're doing kind of your touch-ups. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to, it looks like I accidentally moved my background at some point in time. Did I? No, that's just my screen being silly. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to kind of darken a little bit where those words are, just so that it's a little bit easier to read them. Once again, kind of add that spooky effect to it. All right. Maybe I will go on top of her a little bit. So there we go. The front of my book cover is done. So remember, you're going to want to save this as both a Photoshop file and as your PNG, because if you don't save it as both, well, A, you're supposed to save it as a PNG when you turn it in, but B, you won't be able to go back and fix anything if you don't save it as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to save as. I highly suggest that you change the name of this now. So I'm going to say front cover example. I'm going to save it. But I also want to do save as. Oh, nope. That's right. I need to do exports. So I could do quick export PNG, front cover example. There we go. And now my front cover is done. So we are going to move on to our spine template. So for your spine, for the one that you're doing for your project, if you want to have the picture from the front continue onto the spine, you can. However, you're just going to want to make really, really sure that they line up properly. And you can do that by copying and pasting and messing with your sizes and whatnot. You could also have multiple artboards on the same thing, but we are going to actually just make ours a color. And how we're going to do that is we are going to obviously just use our paint bucket tool, but we want our greens to match our greens from our first one. So we are going to use our eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to try to find, I'm gonna, so we've got all these lovely different greens. I'm going to just try to find a green that I think would work well. I think I'm going to try this one and see how it goes. We can always adjust it later, like I've said multiple times. I'm going to pop on over here, and I'm going to give myself a new layer. This is going to be my color layer. So if I want to call it color, I can. Okay, I'm going to just drop it on in there. And so that will give me a nice green to start with. And we need to do a text box. Now, we want horizontal text, but we're going to rotate it. We don't want vertical text, vertical type tool, because that's what that one does is it puts like the T, and here, I'll just show you. So if we tried to do it this way, what it's going to do, I typed it, and now I can't find it. Nope. We're just going to have to click it on over like this. And I think I made it the same color. I did. Look at me making it. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. But do you see how it makes them go like one on top of the other like that? That is not what we want. So I'm just going to delete that. And then what we want is we still want that horizontal type tool, but we're actually just going to rotate it. Okay. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to drop in my text box here. And this is the title. So the Ghost's Grave. I'm going to select all, and we're going to go back to that one that we had before. And then what I can do is, if you see I kind of like hovering near the corner, I can just straight up rotate it. You could also type in your number. I'm trying to get it right to 90%. And then I'm going to move it. And I once again made it so that I can't click on it. So we're just going to use our arrow tools to kind of push it back over. If you're like me and you did that, arrow tools are great for that. This is far too small of a font though. So we are going to try to make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And whoa, oop, undo. I forgot I wasn't on the text tool. I'm going to click back on that box, and we're going to make that box bigger. All right. And we want it to be big enough that it is like prominent on our spine here, but we don't want it so big that it's going too far outside of those guidelines. Now, the like the top of the H's, or like if there was a Y or something, if those go outside, that's not as big of a deal. We don't want them to get fully cut off, but we do want like the title to be nice and big. So if I go up to 36, how's that looking for me? You want it to be, ooh, okay. I just did that so that I can center this a little bit better here. All right, now if I want to, I can kind of move my arrows, use my arrows to move it a little bit more specifically. Oh, I lost the whole thing there. Oh, every time, Covart, every time. Nope, I don't want that. I don't want that. I'm going to delete that one. Boop. Yes. We're going to make that smaller so that I can see it again. And then we're going to make the box a little bit bigger. I forgot to select it. Okay, I think that might be a little bit too big. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a little bit too big though. So we're going to go with a number that's kind of in between the two. We're going to go with 38. See how that goes. Alrighty. Okay, and mine is, I already changed my color is currently this color, so that's good. Now I also need to put in the author's name. So I could make a whole new text box, or I could just copy this text box and paste so that it's already rotated. And then I just have to make sure that I switch up my font again. And this one's going to have to be smaller, obviously. And making it smaller. So you don't want to go too low because once again, you don't want it to get cut off. So if you want to see what it looks like without the guides, you can. You could go with view and then guides, and you could clear guides. I'm not a huge fan of that because then I can't get them back. But I'm going to go with that. I think that's pretty good. Now that I look at this compared to this, I think I'm going to go with a slightly darker green. I'm just going to kind of bring it down. Oh, that was wrong. Maybe not that dark. There we go. And we are going to give that a shot. And so that little white line there is once again just my screen being silly because it's like that. And we are once again going to save. So we're going to say File, Save As, Spine, Example, and then File, Export. We want it as a PNG, Save. So now that we've got both our front cover and our spine done, we actually need to put this into our mock-up. So we do not need these anymore. I'm just going to close them out. And I don't need to save that. I don't need to save that. So what we're going to do is we are going to open up our mock-up. So I opened this recently. You probably need to click File, Open, and I am going to do front and spine. And now this is the website that we got it from. This is just, you can just delete this layer, but thanks mockupfree.co. We're going to delete that, and then you'll notice over here, just like in some of our other mockups, there's a lot of layers. We do not need to mess with any of these layers. We are just going to mess with the Edit Me layers, okay? And if you would like to do this, like you're pulling from your PNGs, you can. I'm going to show you how to pull it directly from this. So I'm going to do the spine first. So I'm going to select all, and then I want to copy merged. So that would be Shift Command C, or you can just come up here and click it. And then over here, I'm going to find the one that's the spine. So this one's the front cover. This one's the spine. I'm going to double click on the picture itself. And then I'm going to paste my spine in there. And it's all in there. And you'll notice it hasn't switched over yet because I haven't saved this yet. So I'm going to say File, Save. It's going to save it. And then boom, it's in there. So we're going to pop over here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to select it all. We're going to copy merged. Then we're going to pop over here. This we can close. We got a lot of tabs going on here. And then we're going to find the right layer. We're going to double click on it. Then we're going to paste. All right. If we're happy with it, we're going to say save. And then it's in there. Now, this would be the time for you to look at it and be like, do I like where this is? Because I mean, like, yeah, his finger's covering it. I'm not quite sure. For your actual project, you will be able to use, I've got a couple different mockups from the same website on there for you. You can try one of those because, like I said, different ones work different ways. So for my color, they've got all these other ones too. I can mess with my color presets on this one, which is really nice. So maybe I want it to be a bit more sepia, messing with the colors there. For your particular cover, it is up to you, but for this one, we're just going to leave it like this. It's going to be a happy and sparkly background with our creepy cover. So I need to save this. I'm going to do File, Save As, because I don't want it to overwrite my thing. So I'm going to say Complete Book or I'm going to just say complete cover mockup. And I'm going to save it as a PSD, and I'm going to just save this to my desktop. Yes, that's nice. And then I also need to export it as a PNG, because remember, when we upload these to Schoology, it needs to be a PNG because the Photoshop files do not work nicely. So we're just going to click Save. And now that it's all saved, it needs to be uploaded to Schoology to be considered turned in. Remember, if you have any questions, just let me know, and have at it.